Hello, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can all hear me all right. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the GCNS's Members Orientation webinar. My name is Esther Chang. I'm the Executive Director of Global Compact Network Singapore, GCNS. I'm delighted to kick off this afternoon's session. Today's program will be broken down into two segments. First, you'll be receiving an overview of Global Compact initiatives and resources, and hear how your company can make the most out of being a part of this global community. Then it's going to be followed by a sharing of the Budget 2020 and the impact that has on business and sustainability. We're delighted to have Mr. James Walton and Mohit Grover from Deloitte Singapore to share with us their insights. Now, many of you here probably has a pretty good idea of who United Nations Global Compact is, UNGC. But for the benefit of those that are newer to the community, I'm just going to give a quick overview. So UNGC was initiated by the late UN Secretary General Connie Offen in 2000. So in fact, this is UNGC's 20th anniversary. Today, we have more than 10,000 businesses that's committed to the Global Compact and over 3,000 non-corporate members. Globally, we have about 60 local network, and here in Singapore, we're dedicated to supporting sustainability efforts of Singapore companies and subsidiaries. So some of the benefits that's cross-cutting across our networks include providing networking platforms, visible and recognition, as well as tools and resources. We'll be covering more about this a little bit later on. Now, you're probably very familiar with these 17 pretty tiles, but the cornerstone of the United Nations Global Compact is the universal principles on human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Responsible business and investments rooted in these 10 principles will be essential to achieving transformational change through the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the heart of the Agenda 2030 are these 17 goals. They're backed by 193 member states, and they're also backed by 169 targets and indicators. They serve as a guidepost to end extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and help protect our planet. So while we've made good efforts on a couple of these goals, a number of these goals, the 2019 SDG report also signals that there has been slow progress on many of them, and in some cases, there's even regression. So a much deeper, faster, and more ambitious response is needed in order for us to achieve the 2030 agenda. So aligned with the global mandate of the UNGC, GCNS delivers its impact at the national level and regional level. We strive to be a leading platform that enables our members and future business leaders to achieve outstanding sustainability ambitions. And how do we do this? So we do this by connecting resources and creating a supportive and learning ecosystem for corporate sustainability. We help build capabilities through our training programs, tools, and online resources. We also provide thought leadership and promote best practices at various national and regional forums. And this year, we decided to take a deep dive on 3 topics that are cross-cutting across the SDGs and the 10 principles. They are sustainability reporting, carbon management, and sustainable finance. So now, besides the UNGC's 20th anniversary, there's another important milestone for us this year, and that is Global Compact Network Singapore is celebrating its 15th birthday. But instead of just patting ourselves on the back and celebrating how far we, Singapore, have come, we have decided to take this occasion to spur more actions to advance the SDGs in light of the 2030 deadline. So we're kicking off today our Decade for Decisive Action campaign. We're encouraging each and every one of you to take a step, in fact, hopefully many intentional steps to building a more sustainable future. We're here to guide you and your company along the way, whether it's through facilitating meaningful connections or providing you with the tools and resources and the platform that you need. We'll be sending out more information about the campaign, as well as updates on our events and initiatives regularly. So be sure to follow us on social media and also subscribe to our newsletter. So now I will pass my time over to my colleague Yvonne, who will share more about membership benefits.
Hi everyone. So let us just transit the screen over. Just hold on for a moment, please. All right, so here we are. My name is Yvonne, and I would be happy to show you some of the ways whereby you can actually tap on your membership benefits in terms of how you can amplify and communicate your involvement. So, three ways to communicate your commitment here. Number one is, of course, to update your company profile on both UNGC and GCNS. And second is to submit your communication on progress. This is an annual thing that every company has to do as a UNGC signatory. And finally, is also to announce your Global Compact involvement on social media. So I would like to bring you through more details in each of these ways. So first, in terms of some instructions to access your UNGC profile and account, you can, if you don't already know this, you can actually find your organization profile here via this web link. To reiterate, we will be sharing this deck of slides after our webinar today so that you can access this URL easily. And to make changes to your organization information, you can log into UNGC portal here in this URL. If you forget your password, I mean, it happens to the best of us, there is a forgot your password option here. And finally, if you require any form of support on membership matters, please feel free to email me at this email address here. So for a view of how a UNGC signatory profile looks like, I have put out a sample here. As you can tell, in the first page that you see whenever you search for your company's profile, you will notice that there is actually some information on your sector, your engagement tier, your status, whether you're active, non-communicating, or delisted, as well as number of employees. Your letter of commitment when you join the UNGC is also available via the link here. In the event there is a change of leadership in your organization, you can actually update that letter of commitment to feature both the old letter of commitment and the new letter of commitment. But to do that, please get in touch with me or my team, and we will be able to do that for you. And if you go on to the COP tab, you can realize here, the COP tab here, if you look at my cursor, you can see a list of the communication on progress that the organization has submitted over the years. So over here, if you click on any of these links, this is a screenshot, but in the live URL version, web version, when you click on these, you can actually access the document PDFs, and you can actually see all these communication of progress. Please note that these profiles actually are for public view. So whenever you communicate your progress, you are actually communicating the transparency and accountability of your sustainability commitments and progress. Just a note, I might have missed out on this. If you see on the right here under company information, you would actually see the deadline for the COP. So sometimes some of you would ask us, when is the COP due? Once you find your profile, you can actually find that along with the date that you joined the UNGC. Okay. So today, if you are a UNGC participant, you realize that there's more things on your UNGC profile, including the live Twitter feed from the company. So if you tweet any announcement, sustainability related or not, it will actually be pushed up on your UNGC page. Videos are also, you can also embed videos in the UNGC participant profile. But to embed the video, we would need to review the video first. So get in touch if you are a participant today and would like to perhaps embed your corporate video in your company profile. And you can see at the bottom of the screen here, there are some engagement that this organization has with UNGC. So, for example, pledges, commitments, and action platforms that these organizations participate with UNGC can all be found here. If we scroll down to the UNGC participant profile, we will see that some of the SDG here are highlighted in color. So whenever you make your annual COP submissions, you will notice that you will have the option to select the SDGs that you are supporting. And once you select those SDG and submit your COP, it would actually pop up on this company profile page. And further down, you will also notice that the communication on progress by the company is available. And similarly, clicking on those links will link you to the documents that is published by the company. So today, if you are a signatory and you are wondering how you can deepen your engagement with UNGC and become a participant, feel free to get in touch with me and I'll be happy to walk you through. But today, if you are already a participant and you realize that, hey, there are some features like the Twitter and the video that you're not tapping on, not to worry. Again, get in touch with us. I'll be happy to provide some guidance and walk you through about how you can do that. Okay? All right, before I move on to show you how a subsidiary profile looks like, I would like to share with you this important announcement. Late last year, 2019, UNGC has updated their subsidiary policy, and subsidiaries of a UNGC participating company can now enjoy access to its parent company resources, as well as to have its own company profile on UNGC participant listing. All they have to do is simply pay a local network fee. The Singapore local network fee is $2,000 per annum. Essentially, as a subsidiary, there is no need for you to submit another letter of commitment or prepare the communication on progress, as the commitment and progress is subsumed under the parent company. However, we understand that some subsidiaries, they would much prefer to submit their own letter as well as progress, and that is totally okay. You can do that as well. But this is just an option, to reduce the barrier of entry for some of the subsidiaries and to further allow subsidiaries to engage with some of the local networks here. Of course, when subsidiaries are making the application to UNGC to be listed on the participant listing, there will be a need to share the latest annual revenue, but note that the information will not be available for public view. It will be kept private and confidential by UNGC. And we will be sending out an email to all GCNS companies on how they can get started. So today, if you are a subsidiary who has joined us on the webinar, it will be a great opportunity for you to really leverage this increased visibility and recognition opportunity and really get started with your own profile on UNGC and to access your parent company resources. So showing you how a UNGC subsidiary profile looks like. Similarly, you have some company information, but you will realize that there is an additional segment here that indicates who is your parent company, okay? And if you so chooses to use your parent company's communication on progress, it will automatically be indicated here. Again, unless you wish to submit your own communication on progress, you can do that. Okay, so I have covered in terms of how you can access your UNGC profile. I would like to now show you how you can actually also use your GCNS profile and update the account. Similarly, you can find your organization profile on this website here, Members Directory. To make changes, you can log into the GCNS members portal. Important note here is that your UNGC and GCNS logins are actually different. For GCNS login, your username is your organization's UEN number. If you forget your password, there is also a forgot your password option. Any further support required on membership matters, please feel free to email me, okay, at this email address here. So once you log into your GCNS member account, this is what you will see. You will see a list of events. On the left, you will also see your key company information here. Two things I really want to point out to you. On the right, you can click, view, the view button to register for the event stated. Once you click the view button, you will actually find more details about the event, as well as a registration button. On the left, if you click on this edit profile option, it will bring you to this page whereby you can update your company logo, your company website, name, etc., etc. Importantly, you can also update, some of the SDGs that you support as well as interest areas. If you update your profile, you will see that it will be a very colorful profile on our members directory. And I have an example here. As you can see, the SDGs supported by this company is featured here. Interest areas are here. There is also an option for you to request contact with this member company. If you do that, a short form that requests for your name, contact number, and email will pop up. And once this form is submitted, the recipient will receive a message in their member's profile, and then it will say that, oh, this person has tried to make contact with you. So this is one of the ways whereby you can actually get in touch with your fellow members. We are here trying to build a community of sustainability professionals and companies. So this is one of the opportunities that we would like to share with you so that you can leverage on it. And to really emphasize the point on updating your UNGC and GCNS company profile, essentially it is really tapping on that opportunity to ensure that there is accuracy to your company information and ensure that the visibility of your company as a sustainable business is there. Okay, so now in terms of the second way whereby you can communicate your involvement is, of course, to submit your communication on progress. So before you submit the document, first you need to know what you're creating. So I would say that 3 key things that you would really need to know is in terms of the requirements. There are 3 key requirements for COP. Number 1, a statement by your CEO expressing continued support. As indicated here, it can be incorporated as a cover letter before your sustainability report when you submit your COP, or it could also be a paragraph in the report itself for the submission. Next, in terms of description of practical actions and also a measurement of outcomes. Besides knowing the COP requirements, it is important that you also know your COP deadline. This COP deadline, as I mentioned earlier, is already highlighted on your UNGC company profile. Note that UNGC will also send auto email reminders at the various time points, and you may adjust your COP deadline via a one-time reporting cycle adjustment or 90 days grace period. If you need any support in these, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to walk you through the steps. Lastly, it's important for you to know what document that you would like to submit and the period that it covers. So there are some options here. Number 1 is a basic COP template. If you click that link when we share the slides, you will be able to access the template. But it could also be the case whereby your COP is actually a sustainability report or part of an annual or financial report. There are options for you to choose when submitting the COP. Finally, if you are a company with less than 250 employees, or essentially an SME maybe, there is also an option for Express COP, which is 3 yes, no questions. But in the spirit of transparency and reporting, we would like to encourage that you try to put in place perhaps the basic COP or even submitting a report instead of the Express COP. Okay, and in terms of submitting your communication on progress, here is the link for you to log in, and then you can actually have that option to submit. You need to know and select the COP level. I would say that a majority of you would actually choose the GC Active, which is the level that meets the minimum requirement. And there are also additional guides and webinar in the UNGC library that will guide you through in terms of how can you actually prepare your communication on progress. The GC Advanced level has some criteria available there in the details link as well. Please feel free to take a look at them. However, it's important to note that you're not allowed to delete the COP once it's submitted. So please be very careful when you submit your COP and in selecting some of the COP and answers to the self-assessments. There are some further COP resources in this yellow box here. For the COP policy, if you want to find out a little bit more about the requirements, click that link. Visual instructions on how to submit COP also available in the next link. And finally, any further questions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay. In this slide here, I would like to share with you how are the ways whereby you can communicate or announce your Global Compact involvement on social media. Some of the cases that we've seen is that if an organization joins the initiative, you can post it on your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. There is some sample messaging here and sample digital cards here. But we would say that these digital cards are actually really samples to provide some form of guidance for companies. If you already have a corporate branding guideline, please feel free to use that to design your own announcement or graphics for joining the initiative. Similarly, another thing that usually was communicated is when companies submit their communication on progress, and they also share those information on their social media channels. Want to highlight that there is actually a way for you to use logos. Sorry about that. James is here. Okay, so for logo usage, we actually have two types. One is the endorser logo from both UNGC as well as GCNS. These endorser logos are actually available for use on your website or relevant print materials. For the UNGC endorser logo, you would actually have to request for the use via that URL. For the GCNS one, feel free to write into us. For the communication on progress logo, we do encourage you to add in the COP logo in your annual COP report. No prior permission is needed, and you can simply download it in that URL. Okay, so I've really covered, how you can tap on your membership benefits in terms of amplifying and communicating your involvement. But now it's about how you can participate and maximize your network. So 3 ways again in terms of how you can participate in the community. Number 1 is to save the dates for some of the key signature events. 2, be updated with our calendar. We have that on our website. And finally, follow us on social media so that you get all the latest juicy bits of news about us, about what's going on in the community as well. So one of the key upcoming UNGC event is the Leaders Summit on the 15th and 16th June. This is happening in New York. It would convene more than 1,000 corporate sustainability leaders and essentially discussing how principles-based businesses can actually play a role in driving progress on the UN SDGs. I have provided the event registration link here. So if you're interested, please go ahead and register for the event. If you would like updates on other UNGC events, please follow the link over here. Okay. And some of the upcoming key initiatives here at GCNS is actually the Singapore Apex Corporate Sustainability Awards. We will open the application very soon in March, and in fact, you can actually follow the URL below to register your interest and to find out more details such as, past winners, such as judging criteria, and that would be quite interesting, I think, for companies who are interested to be recognized for their excellence in sustainable business and sustainable solutions. And next up is one of the other key events that we have here at GCNS, which is the GCNS Summit. We are actually still penning down the date, but it will be coming soon in October 2020. I would like to highlight that members are entitled to a complimentary pass, and for Gold members, you do get 2 passes. So once we have the dates fixed, we will actually share that dates with you. And so do save the date and make sure that you redeem your complimentary pass as part of your membership benefit. In the meantime, if you would like to see some of the highlights of the 2019 summit, head to this URL. Finally, for further inquiries, please feel free to email my colleague Aditi. Aditi is also here with us on our webinar. So if you have a question on summit, feel free to ask away and we will be attending to them shortly. Next, I would like to share one of the initiatives we have here, which is CPLC Singapore. CPLC is short for Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. We are the first official country-level chapter of the World Bank CPLC. This is jointly launched by GCNS and World Bank CPLC. What it essentially does is to facilitate dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collaboration on carbon management, particularly on internal carbon pricing. The CPLC membership is complimentary, and if you would like to find out more, please email my colleague Kimberly at the email you see below in the screen. And I've covered a lot about corporate initiatives and what are some of the offerings and benefits that we have for corporate members. But we are also doing quite a lot in terms of engaging our youth, our future business leaders, in terms of really trying to drive awareness about sustainability in our younger community. So some of the things that we want to highlight here is, for example, the GCNS Youth Forum. This forum is organized by youth for youth. We have the date in our event calendar. Do check that out. It's later in September, later this year. And also some other programs that might be very interesting for you. And as a corporate, in terms of partnership opportunity, how you can actually be involved in working with GCNS for youth opportunities is to consider whether you would like to provide internship opportunities, site visits, be a speaker at our events. And to actually talk more in terms of youth partnership, please get in touch with my colleague Nigel. He's also on our webinar if you have questions directed at him. So feel free to ask away. And I have a calendar of events by GCNS over here. Please note that this is as of today. If you want the latest update, please visit our website, events and training calendar. Over here, I've also included a link whereby you can actually stay updated on some of the latest and upcoming events that we have. Okay. And lastly, in terms of how you can participate and maximize, I mentioned this earlier, but if you are able to scan the QR code on your webinar screen, you can actually scan the QR codes to follow us on Facebook or to follow us on LinkedIn. We're very, very active on both platforms. If you want to know more about us, feel free to visit our website here at this link. And with that, I will actually pass on the time to my colleague Jasmine to share with you the last part in terms of building capability and knowledge.
Thanks, Yvonne. Hi, everyone. Very big welcome to the GCNS family. My name is Jasmine, and I'll be introducing some of the platforms that GCNS has in place to scale up sustainability capacity in the local business community. So there are three major pools of resources catering to a range of your needs that I'd like to point your attention to. First is the UN Global Compact Library, which is a very extensive repository of useful articles, guidance documents, opinion pieces, best practices, collated across a global platform. It covers a very wide range of topics, and I highly encourage you to explore and make use of it. Next we have tools. So the tools are here to make your journey easier, so please do use them. I'll highlight 4 in particular here. So from the bottom, the UNGC resources. We have the newly launched SDG Action Manager, which is a collaboration with B Corp. It is very easy, it's free to use, and is a very extensive impact management tool. We also have the SDG Compass, which is a guidance document which is very useful for companies who are looking to align your corporate strategies to SDGs. And then from the top, we have the tools that GCNS has put together for our local community. First up is the RISE tool, which is developed for companies who are starting on their corporate sustainability improvement journey. We also have CERT for companies who want to begin recording and managing their carbon and emissions impact. So the access links are embedded here, but in the meantime, I'll just go into a bit more about RISE and CERT. So our member companies do come from a very wide range of sustainability and reporting experience levels. For companies who are just preparing to embark on their journey of corporate sustainability, either voluntary or through pressure from perhaps customers or stakeholders, which is perfectly fine because, as I'm sure you know, a lot of companies do start out this way. GCNS has developed the Responsible Index Communicator for Enterprises, otherwise known as the RISE tool, which is a self-assessment tool that provides your company with a snapshot of your corporate sustainability efforts. It has a built-in scoring system enabling companies to subsequently then chart your own progress path. The tool collects key indicators from an often confusing maze of global frameworks and standards, thus making it a very easy stepping stone for your company to begin with. And the RISE tool consists of basically a company introduction and then a materiality assessment exercise, followed by 100 multiple choice questions across the 5 pillars of governance, human rights, environment, labor, and anti-corruption. So I won't elaborate too much on the pillars. As you can see here, it is a very straightforward multiple choice section. I'll leave you to explore later on some of the examples of questions that the tool will ask the corporate user. Once you're done with that, it will bring you to a results page at the end, which summarizes everything into a scorecard. The exercise is really meant to enable companies to put together information on important indicators of sustainability, which you can then communicate to your stakeholders such as customers, investors, employees, and even senior executives. It also elaborates on some of the common reporting frameworks that your responses would have touched on, such as at the SDGs or GRI, which we will then highly encourage you to explore and perhaps align your reporting against. So for companies who are interested in managing your carbon and emissions impact, the Carbon and Emissions Recording Tool CERT is an Excel template that customers can use to record your data. The tool features built-in formulas that calculate your carbon emissions equivalent and enables users to then after that develop reduction measures. So both the tools are actually usually accompanied by introduction workshops, which will be held throughout the year and which members usually will have free access to. So please do keep a lookout. Alternatively, you can contact us through the links embedded in the table earlier. So another bucket of resources that GCNS members can tap onto is training. Participant level members will have access to the Global UNGC Academy, where you can tap onto online courses for a range of topics. There are occasional courses open for non-participant level members, and one such upcoming one is the demo on the new SDG Action Manager tool on the 3rd of March, 9:30 a.m. We've included more information through the link in the earlier table. At GCNS, we organize a range of workshops, briefings, and discussions where companies can learn from experts or through peer sharing. Unfortunately, the COVID situation has resulted in some changes to our programming, but the topics that you see here are of events that are more or less confirmed. And as mentioned earlier, we also do workshops on RISE and CERT, so please do stay tuned. Please do follow the link below, or you can follow us on either LinkedIn or Facebook. If there's anything else, you can please feel free to also email me. And last but not least, GCNS curates an advanced certificate in sustainability and sustainable businesses, which we offer through SMU. The 12-day course has been developed for working professionals looking to upskill and build broader capabilities in corporate sustainability. The program is very well supported by grants that individuals and companies can then tap onto. So GCNS does bring together experts and specialists to deliver this course and share on a range of core topics underlying corporate sustainability today. The course is structured so working professionals such as yourselves have the flexibility of either committing to the full program of 6 modules or to specific modules. More information can be found in the link that we've provided in the slide. And with that, I conclude this introduction to some of the capacity building platforms that are available. So please do feel free to contact me for more information.
Okay, so that is actually what we've prepared in terms of some introduction to the Global Compact and some of the very tangible ways whereby you can tap on our membership benefits. Lastly, we'd like to make a plug here to, if you know of a company that's interested in sustainability but has not joined the Global Compact family, simply refer them to us. And for successful referrals, we would actually be very generous and give out some SDG pins for your use at your corporate events. Any further queries, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our emails are here. And without further ado, I would like to actually bring us to the next part of our program today, which is the Singapore budget sharing by Mr. James Walton as well as Mr. Mohit. James is here with us in person, so he will be taking my seat in a short moment. But for Mohit, he will be dialing in. So once it's in, we will actually jump the call over to him. Okay. Just hold on, let me move on the screen to the other screen here.
Okay. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to give you a very high-level summary of what we saw in the Singapore budget last week. the high-level changes that you should be aware of. And we've got a very short time to do that, so we have made the slides available as well. They'll be sent to you afterwards. They have a quite comprehensive appendix, particularly of the tax changes for those of you interested in those. And we also have our annual budget commentary document, which goes into a lot more detail. And we always give that out to our clients. We're happy to share that with you as well. So I'm going to spend the first 15 minutes or so just talking about the high-level aspects of what we see in the budget and what the implications could be for Singapore and the economy. And then, given the nature of this group, I have my colleague Mohit Grover, who's our Southeast Asia leader for sustainability services and advises many of the largest corporates in the region on sustainability strategy. He's going to come on and share more specifically on the pieces of the budget as they relate to carbon emissions, so particularly the things around electric vehicles and such, and also around other ongoing changes that we are seeing in Singapore from a government policy kind of point of view and what the implications may be to your business. So just to start with, really there's 4 key areas that were set out in the budget strategy. The first one is what they call the stabilization and support package. I'll go into some of the details of these packages over the next couple of slides, but basically stabilization and support is really all about the short term. It's all about the COVID-19, to some extent even the lag from the trade war that has still been going on. We've been feeling the effect of that in Singapore as one of the world's most trade-dependent nations. And so what we see in this area is a job support scheme, wage credits, some cash flow support. Across all the sectors, these are available. And then some very specific targeted measures on 5 sectors which have been particularly hard hit by the coronavirus outbreak, which is aviation, tourism, retail, food and beverage, and what we call point-to-point transport, which is basically taxis and private hire vehicles. So I'll talk a little bit more in a second about those specific measures. So say that's very much the short-term deal with getting through the next couple of months for corporates and for them to keep their employees employed, to give them wage increases still, given the cost of living is rising, and to keep them trained and re-skilled. The second area, the transformation and growth strategy, is really the continuation of what the Singapore budget has been for the last couple of years. If you've been following it, you'll have seen lots of initiatives over recent years around innovation and productivity, around going digital, around helping SMEs to internationalize. Again, these programs, it very much continues that trend, specific focus in particular on SMEs to help them in transforming and growth. So that bit is really the continuation of the long-term focus that Singapore takes on its budgets. The third part that they call either the care and nurture or care and support package, it looks at financial support to the individual. So whereas stabilization and support looks at keeping employees in work by working with corporates, the care and nurture is about helping the individual. So there's a lot of cash payouts in here, which many cynical people say is always a sign that there's an election coming. But also various aspects around support to education, access to housing, and even around the softening the impact of potential GST implementation, or sorry, GST rise in the next couple of years. And then the last bit, which is the piece Mohit is going to focus on at the end, was called Build and Secure, and it focuses specifically on climate change and how we will become more energy efficient and focus on clean energy. So when we look at the sectoral support in the face of COVID-19, so as I mentioned, there's 5 sectors listed at the top there that this impacts. How are we seeing this? Firstly, with property tax rebates of between 15 to 30%. 15% is more for the kind of retail end, up to 30% for hotels. Temporary bridging loans, so this is basically to really help organizations deal with cash flow, that if they are struggling right now with paying their wage bills, then they can access this money to help them get through the next couple of months. There's a specific package for aviation to help particularly shops and food facilities at Changi Airport to stay afloat. And we also see rental waivers for hawker centers, markets, as well as commercial tenants in certain buildings. And the government has committed $800 million in total to supporting their frontline agencies, with most of that going to the Ministry of Health. So that was the kind of COVID-19 package. I mentioned the stabilizations and support package. Some of the key measures you'll see under there. There's a job support scheme. Now, this is available to all organizations except for government organizations and representative offices. And basically what this gives you is 8% of the wages of local employees. So this is Singapore citizens. So this does not cover your employment pass holders. And it covers October to December 2019. And it is for the 3 months in total, you can get up to 8% of the wages, with the wages capped at $3,600. So whether you're paying the person $3,600 or whether you're paying them $10,000, the cap is $3,600 and you will get 8%. But obviously that is a good amount for 3 months of payroll. And again, this applies across the board, not only SMEs. And then there is a wage credit scheme. This was a previous scheme, it's been enhanced. And what we're really looking at here is making sure that companies continue to give wage increases in the face of the cost of living rising, and that doesn't stutter. So again, that's an incentive the government is giving. One of the big items here, a corporate income tax rebate, again, for all companies. There is a 25% rebate subject to a maximum cap of $15,000. So if you're paying $60,000 or more of tax, then you can get the maximum amount there of $15,000 of corporate income tax rebate for the financial year, or for the year of assessment for 2020. There's a few other schemes here around working capital, carryback of losses, capital allowance for plant and machinery. Again, all really intended to try to help organizations manage their cash flow. And if you do want more detail on any of those, then if you look at the slides that the appendix of the slides that we will send around afterwards, or the commentary document, you can see very detailed information on exactly what you can claim and how you can claim it. But if you are in any organization in Singapore, these are things that are available to you as well. Specifically for SMEs, there are particular incentives. Again, expansion of some of the existing programs or launch of new programs around digitalization in particular. Support to deep tech startups, fintech, digital banking, and a lot of support around building leadership capability and cyber capability. And there is a Skills Future Enterprise credit. I think we're all used to Skills Future from an individual point of view, that kind of $500 you get to access for your own development. But now there is a $10,000 enterprise credit for employers that are doing workforce transformation. Again, all of these initiatives, what we will send around, will give you a lot more information. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to myself via LinkedIn. For employers and employees, there's reskilling for employees over 40 plus. Again, part of the effort to keep Singaporeans in employment as they get older, and recognizing the changing nature of the workforce at this point in time. A senior worker support package, a Skills Future credit top-up. So again, we're all used to having that Skills Future credit. There will be a top-up for Singaporeans. And there is a new support package for Singaporeans aged 40 to 60, a $500 credit top-up for them, again, to keep, for us, to keep us employable in the coming years. And particularly a nice thing here, an enablement employment credit for businesses that employ people with disabilities will now be able to access that. Again, part of building an inclusive society in Singapore. One piece of good news, GST is not increasing yet. We were told a couple of years ago that GST would rise to 9% at some point in the next few years. The government has said it will not be 2021. And if any of you joined our special panel discussion on Tuesday, where we had a number of leading economists from Singapore, they were all of the opinion that we will not see it in 2022, likely either, because of the need for Singapore economy to recover and the potential for an election year. So we're expecting that this now looks like 2023, probably 2024, the GST will rise to 9%. But the government did announce that there will be a GST assurance package, so that when that does eventually rise, whenever that happens, whichever year it is, then every adult Singaporean will get some cash back to compensate for that GST rise. But as I say, at the moment, the only thing we know for certain is that it will not be 2021. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mohit, who is hopefully on the line, and he's going to talk about sustainability.
So sorry guys, we're just trying to get him on the line at this point. It seems like there is some technical error here. Perhaps we could take a recess of a few minutes before and let us try to get Mohit on the line again. Yeah, so maybe a short bio break and whatnot. Okay.
So I think we'll start again. My apologies. I think you were expecting to see someone different. My colleague Mohit is in Malaysia today, and he seems to be having a bit of trouble dialing in. But I will do my best to cover for him, and just for this last piece on the sustainability pieces that we saw in the budget. And I think a couple of interesting things came out here. I think the big headline item everyone saw was around electric vehicles, and the government has made a commitment to really move fully away from carbon vehicles and move towards electric vehicles over the next 20 or so years. They've said that they themselves, the government, will set an example by leading the change to move towards electric vehicles. And the way that they are going to kind of kickstart this process is by giving a rebate for drivers who buy electric vehicles. So that's kind of the financial incentive side of things. But interestingly as well, obviously one of the bigger problems at this point in time is around infrastructure, and simply whether it's capable at this point in time to have access to electric vehicles in the same way that you need access currently to gas stations. So they are talking about implementing 28,000 charging points around public car parks in Singapore over the next 10 years or so. So again, part of the shift towards electric vehicles. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail in a second. The second area we saw in the budget was specifically around climate change mitigation. And after Davos and after what has been happening in Australia over the last couple of months, there was really a sense of urgency in this year's budget that we haven't seen in prior years, in spite of the climate change initiatives that we've seen in the past. In particular, there was a lot of talk about rising sea levels, and Singapore obviously would be extremely vulnerable in the event of that, but I think it's an eventuality coming at some point. And so a new $5 billion injection into a coastal and flood protection fund, and they've committed to continually to invest into that fund over the coming years, as and when there is a surplus that allows them to do so. Also, with regards to climate change, they're investing into urban solutions, sustainability, and particularly here around circular economy. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit in a moment, but there was a particular good example was mentioned in the budget. We've had new water for many years facing up to Singapore's water challenge, and now we have new sand, which is made using tinder ash and is being used in the paving of roads at the moment. So there's definitely a move towards having more focus on circular economy and really to try to support research and development of ideas that will help with renewable energy and sustainability. Finally, in terms of when you get down to the individual level, the individual Singaporean, a couple of things. Again, support for Singaporeans to buy more energy efficient household appliances, so incentives in that area. And secondly, a big move around HDB estates to try to have more green in the new HDB estates that are being built. This concept of a green towns program, how we can recycle rainwater, reduce energy consumption, and have more trees in the HDB kind of areas to live up to the promise of Singapore as a garden city. So within recent years, Singapore has been doing a lot to try to fight climate change. And in the speech, the Deputy Prime Minister specifically talked about our move towards being a low carbon, low emission economy and really setting an example around the world. And if you see on the left here of this chart, we talk about the nations that are exceeding their NDC targets versus those that are not. And I think these will be familiar names for many of you. If we look at what Singapore has been doing, we've been very active in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and we have pledged to reduce our emissions intensity. And this year we are expecting that Singapore will update its commitment to the Paris Agreement. What the impact of the Paris Agreement will be in the next couple of years obviously depends on other political factors at stake in the world, but Singapore has said that it will continue to step up to its commitment and to reaffirm that. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, that focus on urban solutions, sustainability, renewable energy, and how we can actually turn our carbon constraints into a strength by moving towards an economy that is circular and has renewable energy at the basis. So not to think of carbon constraints as an impediment to the economy, but to think of it as a way of transforming our economy is kind of at the base of all of this. We've had the Carbon Pricing Act now for a little while. It came into operation on the 1st of January 2019. And The tax is gradually kind of coming in over the next couple of years. So from 2019 to 2023, it starts at $5, but it will increase from 2023 to between kind of $10 up to by 2030 around $15 per ton. So this is a clear statement by the government with the use of a carbon tax. And so far, the feedback from corporates has generally been good, that they acknowledge this and why we need to do this. And the first payment will be happening this year in 2020 based on the emissions that have happened in 2019. So we will see how those payments look like over the coming year. Finally, on that electric vehicles piece that we talked about just now, again, just to go into some of the details here, if you look at the goals that Singapore has set, as I mentioned before, Singapore has set a target that 100% of vehicles will run on clean energy by 2040. This is a very ambitious target, obviously, over 20 years. It's broadly in line with what we are seeing in France, Germany, the UK, and other places. If you look at the table on the left here, Japan has a target 30% of electric vehicles by 2030. But Germany, India, UK, France, Netherlands, Norway have really targeted all moving over by somewhere between 2025 in the case of Netherlands and Norway to 2040 in the case of UK and France. So a lot of countries around the world moving this way in terms of cleaner engine technology. I mentioned the need for better infrastructure. One of the considerations from a government point of view in all of this is that currently fuel excise is a very valuable return for Singapore. They currently get about $1 billion per year from the taxes on diesel and other fuels that come in. So Singapore is planning on imposing a lump sum tax into the road tax schedule for electric vehicles, basically to account for that, and that will be phased in over 3 years. Now, the implications of that is that we expect that the road tax for electric vehicles in the next couple of years will be higher, obviously, than traditional cars and vehicles. And the reason for that, in effect, is because they are kind of bringing what used to be the excise tax elements of driving a little bit into the road tax. So instead of paying a lower road tax and higher excise taxes, effectively you will pay a higher lump sum road tax and lower excise taxes afterwards. But with the early adoption incentive, which I mentioned earlier, that rebate of 45% on the additional registration fee, and other moves in terms of incentives that we are expecting to see to encourage people to buy electric vehicles, we believe that overall it will represent cost savings for people that move to electric vehicles over the next 5 to 10 years once that infrastructure for vehicles is in place. So that's what we planned to cover today. As I say, a very whistle stop, 30 minutes for our clients. We usually cover this in a day, but very high level. We will send out these slides, and as I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of appendices at the back that cover all the different specific tax changes, and we will also share with you as well our commentary document that we send out to our clients that gives a lot more detail on those. If you have any specific questions around your business, either around the tax implications of the budget or how you can access some of those incentives, or indeed from a climate point of view, perhaps considering moving your fleet towards electric vehicles or trying to understand more around carbon tax and carbon tax reporting and disclosures, then please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me either James Walton at Deloitte, or if you look at the post on LinkedIn that was announcing this speech, you can find that is linked to me as well, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have and do our best to help you.
All right, at this point, we actually have a live chat function. Some of you are already using it, but if there is any questions for James here, please feel free to post it, and then he'll be able to read these questions and answer to you verbally. So maybe a couple minutes for you to type in some questions that you have, and we will answer them.
Just don't ask any questions about outcomes of elections or or anything like that. Yeah, any broad questions on the budget? I have my tax specialist with me as well. So no matter how technical the question, we'll do our best to answer it. I think that means we were comprehensive. Good.
Okay, good.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Thanks very much. Any point, if you have questions about our earlier membership segment, please feel free to also ask us away. Of course, it's not limited to this live webinar platform. We have our emails in the slides that we will send out after the webinar today. You can reach out to the team. If you have any questions or you need any support in membership related matters, please feel free to just drop us an email. But otherwise, we have some poll questions coming up right now. If you could, participate in them, that would be great. Otherwise, if there are no more questions, we will end this in a couple of minutes. Once you finish your poll questions, of course. Okay, so there are no if someone asks if we could have a set of slides, most definitely we will share the slides after today. Just look out for the email that I'll send later. Not to worry about that. Okay, if you have completed all your poll questions, please do fill up the poll questions, because that would be very helpful to inform us of the programs that we planned. And if this COVID-19 situation persists, then we might see more of each other online. But otherwise, really want to hear from you in terms of your feedback. And I will be ending this webinar at 3:40, so 3 minutes for you to do that poll.